ever wonder why humans are more complex than simple creatures, like earthworms, for example? In other words, what makes humans more complex than earthworms? If life is programmed by so-called genetic materials, simply called genes, don't you think we would have a greater number of genes to make us humans more complex than earthworms? It turns out that this is not always the case. We humans have a very similar number of genes with the simple worms, in fact. The attribute distinguishing humans from the less complex organisms is not the number of genes, but the regulation of gene expression. Turning on and off specific genes at the right time and right place is the key for the complexity of living creatures. So more complex organisms like humans requires more complex gene regulation. So if things go wrong in the regulation of genes, you can imagine it will lead to various diseases, such as developmental anomaly, cancer, and diabetes, to name a few. So simply put, my research focuses on understanding gene regulation. The next question is then, how do you find out how genes are regulated in the normal states and how is it different from the disease state? So there are many ways to address this question, but my approach can be summed up in 3 words. Seeing is believing. To understand the complex gene regulation and the consequences of aberrant regulation, I'll look at the structures of molecules involved in gene regulation. Knowing the structure of any object can help us to figure out how they work, how they function. Now, gene regulation occurs within each and every cell, the makeup of any living creatures. The average size of human cells is less than the thickness of a strand of human hair. Naturally, the molecules involved in gene regulation within individual cells cannot be seen by the naked eye. To see things even smaller than the microscopes can handle, we use a very special kind of light, X-ray. With some computing and the power of X-ray, we can see the atomic structure of molecules. So here in this presentation, what you're looking at is one of my research outcomes, the structure of one of the important molecules in gene regulation. The molecule is beautiful and colorful, but I'd like to draw your attention to a small black ball labeled as zinc. The power of X-ray revealed the presence and specific position of this zinc complex with this particular molecule involved in gene regulation. This research outcome and coupled with follow-up experiments from my collaborators propose a potential mechanism of abnormal distribution of this molecule caused by zinc in neurological disease such as Alzheimer's disease. So in summary, gene regulation, turning on and off specific genes at the right time and right place, is the key to the complexity of living creatures. And understanding how molecules work in a normal gene regulation can help us to combat the disease state, to treat as well as to prevent. So my research focused on looking at the atomic view of molecules involved in gene regulation. Not only provides the answers to basic science, but also provides the basis for future therapeutic interventions. Thank you.